Thank you, Chiara. And it's Tuesday afternoon. It's 4 p.m. in Potsdam in Central Europe, and it's Space Café WebTalk time. Our Space Café WebTalk 33 minutes with Professor Dr. Kai Uwe Schrogl will begin soon. Thanks for joining us for our talk today about Europe's space ambition. What's up during this autumn? We are back from the summer break, and I can't be happier and more excited to have Kai Uwe in the studio today. 7 weeks ago, we finished before the break with Graham Turner on the status of the ESA accelerators. And today, we are looking into the near future. As always, we appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback. SpaceWatch.Global, as you all know, is a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters that showed their commitment to keeping our independent journalism alive. We really appreciate that. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters and the Space Café podcast. The latest one, freshly released this morning, featured sustainability professor Judith Walls from St. Gallen University. And we also have new exciting episodes on the Space Café radio every Monday and Thursday for you. Worth listening. Yesterday we released Lukasz Wilczynski on the upcoming European Rover Challenge. And spoiler, we will continue our Artemis mini-series on Thursday. We also keep our fan shop open online for you to support us actively and become a space watcher. And if you missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive available on our webpage in the event section and on YouTube. My guest today holds the title for the most audience registrations in the history of the Space Café 33 Minutes with almost 300 registration in May 2020 at the peak of the lockdown in Europe. I'm very happy that he followed our invitation again. With that, a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Kai Uwe Schrogl here in our Space Café studio. Just a few words about your current engagements. Our Kai Uwe is at the moment the Special Advisor for Political Affairs in ESA at its headquarters in Paris. And between 2019 to 2021, he was seconded to the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy here in Berlin. Almost here in Berlin, to support the German presidency of the Council of the European Union. Before, he was the Chief Strategy Officer of ESA, Director of the European Space Policy Institute in Vienna, Head of the Corporate Development and External Relations Department in the German Aerospace Center. Just a quick run through the last decades. Kai Uwe is the president of the International Institute of Space Law and co-chair of the Global Future Council on space of the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Kai Uwe.
Thank you.
In our Space Café again. So, let's start. In our Space Café today, we will touch on very relevant topics for Europe. So let's kick it off with talking about the CM22, the ESA Council at the ministerial level. What role will the ESA Council at the ministerial level play in bringing Europe's space ambition forward? What can we expect from CM22?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Thorsten, for inviting me again to the Space Café. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and to provide your audience, your growing and fantastic audience, with information and background. So I'm very pleased to give you and the audience a glimpse on what is up for our Council at ministerial level in November this year. And you will not be surprised to hear that we have already been preparing that more or less right after we hosted the last ministerial conference. So
preparation Sevilla.
Yeah, which was in 19. So preparation speeded up, of course, only at the early time this year in spring. But now we have a fairly well understanding of what is possible and what we can present to our member states for subscription at the ministerial conference. You said that these ministerial conferences provide the pulse, so to speak, for what are the ambitions of Europe. And certainly ESA is, with its programs, the backbone of the European space endeavors, together with the programs of the European Union, but even more so with the programs, the national programs of its member states. So everything has to be in sync, and the ESA ministerial conferences are also a place where this is brought together. But what about the ambition? Every 3 years, ESA and its member states is deciding on large-scale programs together with also accompanying activities. So we decide on our mandatory activities, on optional programs, but we also decide on activities which are associated with our space programs and these specific activities. And this year we are again refocusing, reshaping and also recalibrating the European space efforts. This goes over the whole plethora of space activities because ESA is doing everything in space, from the launchers, space transportation, over and via space science, space applications, to technologies and other associated activities. So we present to our member states a setup we are currently defining together with them, which touches not only new activities, but also extends our successful programs, for example, in the field of earth science and in the field of space science, together with exciting new activities from the launcher field to telecommunications, navigation, and also space safety. So it will be an occasion and an opportunity to provide a new vision also for Europe, because it's not only for the next 3 years we are planning and making programs, but we are setting up programs which will certainly be there for the next decade or even 2 decades to come.
I see. We will talk about challenges which are going on with this current setup a bit later, but from the current assessments, government in Europe talking about decreasing budgets for space. For ESA programs, even the ESA DG asked for plus 30% more. Is that just a political dance we can see right now, or how realistic is that?
Well, that's not a political dance, not at all. And I don't know where you heard that governments want to reduce space. Absolutely not. The governments have understood, even more so during the past decade, and maybe very strongly in the political turmoil we see right now, that space is extremely important. They come to us and ask us, can you provide us support, mechanisms, solutions also to our big problems, to climate change, to security threats? Can you do that? Prepare programs. We want you to lead us. And this is something which is extremely encouraging. So we have a moderate increase in areas where there is particular interest by the governments, by our member states, to do something and to invest also into space industry, but even more so in space applications. And this is something which encourages us, and where we are also confident that whatever we prepare and present will be received with great interest. we will see in the end what the outcome will be, what the subscription level will be, what the affordability of the member states in the end will be. But the signals we have been receiving is that they are very strongly hoping that we come up with ideas and programs which will support them in managing the big problems which are ahead.
I agree that we're facing big problems, and these problems need space as one element of the toolkit to tackle these problems. But if budgets get cut, I think we agree we shouldn't drop space entirely, because, as you mentioned, but where can we cut? Is it Earth observation, navigation, communication, or is it then more exploration and science? These are the more soft factors.
Well, you will not get from me any ideas or proposals to cut in any field.
I think
don't expect
member
that from me.
states will come
Certainly
with
not.
Yeah.
No, you are talking about cutting. Nobody wants to cut. It's a question of where to invest, where to increase the investment, and where to possibly focus the investment. And this is what I said. We don't have any signals that we have to or shall cut. The member states are really interested in investing. And now we have these various areas. We have the mandatory program, which is certainly not just paying salaries or administration. No, in the basic activities we have science, and we have technology development, and we have education. So these are areas which are the future, and we need people, we need workforce. So education in ESA, it's the best program, internationally also, for education. This is providing the workforce and the scientists also of the future. And then the optional programs. These optional programs... Sorry?
Such as? Can you give us some examples?
In the field of launches, we are asked to develop our launcher family as soon as we then also have Ariane 6 working into the fields of being greener and providing also sustainability for reusability. So there are programs on the table which will provide the member states with the choice to invest in that. It will be a continuation and expansion of Earth observation, and that's absolutely clear what is at stake. And Graham Turnock, you referred to that, made it clear with his explanations on space for a green future, climate factories, things like that, digital twins. But also in other areas, navigation, new programs, telecommunication. We have to catch up with the US in the field of constellations, broadband satellite constellations. We have ideas. We can then team with these ideas with the European Union. And there are also a lot of other areas, in particular in the field of space safety, space traffic management, space debris removal. We have to make sure that space is used in a sustainable way also in the future. We have solutions, we have ideas, and I'm absolutely confident that the member states appreciate that, and we will now, in the hot phase, so to speak, after the summer vacation, during the next 3 or 4 months, we will fine-tune that together with the member states, and I'm pretty sure we will have an extremely strong showing.
That's wonderful, and we will pick up on that latest after the event. What is in November again this year? Or
yes, it is in late November.
Okay, so then we will keep our audience, of course, informed about it. So what else will happen the next month, or will the next month bring the European and the international scene for space activities and space regulations?
Well, let me first say a few words on what happened during the previous months, because it's so exciting and fantastic. the launch of James Webb Space Telescope with Ariane 5. You cannot praise that enough. It went perfect, absolutely perfect. And Ariane 5 also provided with its precision a longer lifetime to James Webb. Not only that it was the billions and billions of investment were placed safely into orbit, but with such a precision that the lifetime will be even longer. We then had most recently the successful launch of Vega. Now, who says that Europe is not autonomous in space transportation? We will soon have Ariane 6, and then we again will have a family together with the upcoming micro launchers from the commercial field. Now, what is up? In a few weeks' time, we hope that the launch window will then actually be filled. We will have the Artemis 1 launch, and now really everybody knows that ESM, the European Servicing Module, is part of that, an integral part of that. Even on the critical path of that mission for the very first time in such an endeavor. So we are into moon exploration. So these are exciting activities, I would say, and this is also extremely encouraging, I would say, for the ministers who will meet in November to then have a real backing by these successes of European space activities, where they then can make their investments and their decisions. Let me provide you with one other example. This is one of these examples you usually do not really publicize in a big way. Quantum, meaning the program which ESA together did with Eutelsat. It's now getting operational for the first time, a software-defined satellite. A satellite which you can reprogram while in orbit and in mission. This is something really dramatically new. And this happens with European technology, and it happens right now. It's not on the real headlines, but it's something of huge, really huge importance, and this is something where we should call ourselves also the hidden champion, because it's of such a dramatic importance for the future of spaceflight.
I hear you, and I really like your enthusiasm you bring in. If we see, meanwhile, what happened in the rest of the world, I mean, China counted, I think, 31 launches. I don't know how many launches the US or especially Starlink or SpaceX counted. The Chinese also provided, I think, the longest quantum key distribution now from space. So other areas of the world are also very active. Yeah. So, and I think we should put it into context also for our politicians to say, hey, something goes on there, what we have to at least keep up with. And I think with the ESA ministerial, we are on a good way.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Just to make that clear, when we dialogue with the member states, we are absolutely clear on where we are leader, where we are good, and where we have to catch up. So we also balance our programs in maintaining leadership, in improving where we are good, and also to invest where to catch up. And this is clearly depicted. So we don't paint everything in rose, but it is something where we also want to be absolutely clear that we have understood that we carefully and openly assess where we are, and that we then tell also the politicians and our member states, if you want to reap the benefits of space, if you want to be autonomous also, and this is a political message we receive, then you have to invest.
Okay. Let's move, because we just have all 33 minutes, and I think we can fill the entire evening with this topic on its own. But let's talk about the next topic, and that's the working group. The ESA announced the high-level group on human and robotic space exploration for Europe before the summer break. And can you give us a background briefing in it? I mean, why was that needed and it's implemented? And I mean, you should know that by heart, I'm quite sure.
Well, yeah, indeed. I'm responsible for that, so I do. And I must say, this responsibility is not a burden, but it's really fantastic. It is something which can really shape European space policy, European space programs, and Europe in space as such. And I must say that Josef Aschbacher, our Director General, did take a really courageous step in proposing that. You need courage to say, if not now, when shall I propose to get Europe on a track to autonomous human space exploration? This is a big thing. We were there already in the 80s, 1980s, so 40 years ago.
Return of Hermes.
Yes. It's not the return of Hermes, but it is after Hermes had been scrapped while it was presented in Rome and The Hague at the ministerials. It was scrapped in the 90s. Since then, we said, okay, we are fine with being the junior partner, with being the passenger here, passenger there. But we did not have the ambition to say, we want to have an autonomous space transportation capability for humans in space, and also then the idea and the image and the understanding of why we would then need such autonomous capabilities in exploration. Now, the time is here, and we hear it from everywhere. We hear the Chinese have human space activities. They want to go to the moon. The Indians even have soon human space transportation. Where will Europe be? Will we only be the junior partner? Will we be the latecomer? Will then things be already divided amongst others? And what are the benefits we can draw from going autonomous? And this is where we would like to have the advice of this high-level advisory group, as we call it. 12 fantastic personalities from the fields of geopolitics, economics, and the social
Get us some
field.
name dropping. I mean,
well, there are a number of politicians, ex-politicians, Anders Rasmussen, the former NATO Secretary General, as a key personality in this sector. We also have economists. There we have not only Ms. Matsukato, but also the managing director of the World Economic Forum. And we have, and I like that in particular, a number of personalities from the field of, we call it the social field, science communicators, also comic writer, and we have, I should mention that explicitly, we have a Norwegian explorer. And when I say explorer, it's really an explorer. He has been the first person to go by foot to the 3 poles of the Earth, the South Pole, the North Pole, and Mount Everest. And with such people, I think we can get an understanding during the next months when they are preparing a report. We can get an understanding whether and why Europe should have autonomous space exploration capabilities for humans in outer space. And this is something our Director General would then like to present to the next Space Council, Space Summit, which we have foreseen or which we would foresee for November 2023 under the co-chairship of Germany, which is having and holding then the chairship of the ESA Council at ministerial level, and Spain, which will be at that time the EU Council chair.
I see. What are concrete goals you expect from this working group? And is it just a temporary one, or is it foreseen to go with you the next decade? So what are the intentions?
The intention is, as with the Matosinhos manifesto in the first part of the presidency of Josef Aschbacher, to provide until spring in 3 sessions a report shaping the understanding in these 3 sections: geostrategy, economics, and social area, of why Europe should extend and even make our space, human space activities autonomous. And as I said, this shall then be the starting point with which we would confront, but in a friendly way, and I would better say stimulate the interest of our member states to then decide on a political level for that, and then in the following ministerial conferences set out the technology and programmatic paths in order to implement and realize that.
Okay. As our regie just told me that we are running out of time and we are over already, let's move to the last corner or the last area. We see Europe and the world at the moment in very tense situation. We spoke about it earlier. We have to solve unseen problems in to survive or to save humanity. And I mean it literally. I mean, we have the pandemics, we have wars, inflation, disrupted supply chains, energy shortage, global tensions, lack of regulations and governance, climate crisis, and so on and so on. There's not an area where we have a blue moon right now. So how do you evaluate this situation in the space context right now?
Well, I don't share your optimistic view, as you just pointed out. Maybe it's even worse, but I should say without joking, space applications, space for climate research in particular, never provided a rosy picture, and it provided the data and the information to know much earlier than now where we are heading to. So what is in the IPCC report, for example, is based on the data space has been preparing for decades now. And I must say it's sobering when governments still want to tell their people that, well, we can possibly manage 2 degrees, even 1.5 degrees. Let's not talk about the worst case scenarios. This is not really honest, and it's not based on the scientific data which has been provided over so many years. Now, we will also face the challenges where space then can contribute to making things better, or at least reduce the risk, or even manage the disasters we are facing. I'm wearing a shirt with Sentinel, a joint program of ESA and the European Union. It's so important for managing what is ahead of us. And this is one of the big tasks space is facing, where we, and I come back to the ministerial conference, where we again provide further solutions, where we again provide mechanisms and means of how to handle that, not only in climate research, but also in safety, civil security, and adjacent areas, in order to better use our resources, to create a better way of mobility, to reduce waste, and to make the planet, not only for the humans, but also for the animals and the livestock, and the nature, as far as it still exists, provided with a development perspective.
I mean, I did not know that you gonna wear a Sentinel t-shirt, but we have chosen a background picture. What is a Sentinel picture, of course, and
Good.
HD resolution of Berlin, or the Greater Berlin. How can we afford all these space programs under this current situation? I mean, again, I'm quite sure that we don't have to argue that we have to fight climate change or energy resources, refugee or streams or so by space better than anywhere else. Wildfires is a big thing right now, and greetings to our friends at Aurora Tech at that point here. But can we really afford all these programs in this diversity you mentioned before? And I mean, I'm a big fan of it, but I see this current situation that we're facing.
Yes.
I mean, the Deutsche Bundestag just today came with the additional or add-on to the gas prices that are already high as of this fall. So, I mean, how can any one of us talk with his peers and say, hey, we do all this in space, and that comes back for us here on Earth?
Well, you say it. It comes back to us here on Earth. It's not spending money for I don't know what, for the fun of it. To the contrary, this money comes back. It solves issues, problems, and it provides decision makers with means for taking qualified decisions. Look, Thorsten, the money we spent for space, even if it sounds big over the years, compare it with what some finance ministers in Europe are now shelling out, have been shelling out to save banks, to save this, to save that, and now to help more or less and subvention the gas and the oil companies. Compare it with these amounts of money. And space is investment. And governments and societies and also their industries, they need investment. And this is future investment. And I think politicians have now understood that. We had such a discussion possibly 10, 15 or 20 years ago. Why do we have to spend on space? Then we had to tell them €1 spent has €6 return. Now they really understood. And this is why I'm also confident that they say, hey, you have the mechanisms, the means, the tools also for us then to help us taking decisions, help our policies, and to also provide opportunities to increase the benefits of society, and in the end, what will come now, to soften the effects of climate change we are facing.
My last question, what can our audience all do to support the ministerial conference? What can we do? Shall we talk with our local politicians to get their awareness? How can we set the scene? I mean, really from our perspective of an ant in this giant empire.
Well, they shall watch SpaceWatch.Global, of course. But joking apart, you mentioned talking with politicians. And what I, during the past decades, where I was always responsible for communication with politicians in national parliaments, in the European Parliament, but I also saw in other countries' parliaments, is that whenever politicians are confronted, again, confronted in a friendly way with space, be it shaking hands with an astronaut, but also understanding what is behind space, they become supporters. And those who really, like our audience, who are really into space, I can only encourage them to talk with their members of parliament to say, well, there is something upcoming. You might sit in the economics committee or the research committee of your parliament. It's different in the various EU member states. If it comes up, you can be sure that there is a large constituency which is interested in that. And if you need more information on what and how space can benefit what you are doing as a politician for your policy areas, ask ESA, ask your National Space Agency, and they will be happy to provide information for you. So communicate. Yep. That's the thing, and everybody can become a communicator.
Yes, absolutely. So I know we are running absolute overtime, but a question we got in here is from Margot Klaus. What would be a responsible, sustainable use of space according to you and to ESA? That's an easy question.
I think that's an easy question. Space sustainability is one of the key policy approaches for ESA. And Josef Aschbacher has even put it into one catchy policy statement, and this is debris zero, which is that we want in the future produce no debris, and we will make and create technologies, missions also for bringing back debris removal. And in addition to that, sustainability is also about managing space traffic. So we have been building on what has been doing in the recent past on shaping space traffic management. ESA is preparing a number of approaches and technologies and methods to improve the status of space traffic, and in the end, hopefully also, you asked once on the regulatory issues, to set up a regulatory regime where space traffic is, however, not on the European but then on the global scale, managed by rules and norms which are accepted by the whole space community and by the universal, so to speak, space community globally.
I think at SpaceWatch.Global we covered this topic as well.
Could be.
I read about it and heard about it. The last question, before we are totally taken off here or off the screen from our regie, is from Dimitri Payson. Recently I've seen a few announcements about the event or project ESA is doing for Africa or together with the African actors. Is this a sign of a strategic move to South planned for some future, or rather a part of the socially responsible agenda? Interesting one.
Well, I would say this is a very good question because it opens our discussion from Europe to the international scene. ESA is preparing every year a report on its international activities, and you will see when you look back that the cooperation, and I call it cooperation because it's not just help, support or whatever, the cooperation with countries in the south is increasing. We have a number of fantastic projects. Maybe I should mention the one on water management, which is really important. We also have other European actors cooperating with Africa very strongly, in particular EUMETSAT, which cooperates on data for climate as well as weather observation, and this is something new, and this might be a bit surprising, but Europe is the only economic area where also from other areas people, entrepreneurs, can come and set up their shops and create and work on their ideas. Only recently I have talked with Indian colleagues who have set up, supported by the ESA BIC, a space company here in Europe, and they also said this is only possible in Europe. And with such opportunities, which then also feed back to these countries and regions, we can create something which is certainly something more than just development aid, but it can then in the future also become economic areas and areas where we share our policy objectives for that purpose. Africa was already in the focus of the Belgian EU Council presidency when I was in ESPI as the director 15 years ago. We prepared a report on Africa. So Africa is something important for us, and I should also say the talent there is fantastic. In the international, just to tell that story also, in the International Institute of Space Law, we host these moot court competitions. And 2 years ago, the African team won against 115 teams worldwide. So there is talent, there are ideas, and we shall be happy to have Africa as a partner.
Moot court finals will be happen at IISL, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So everyone is welcome to follow that. Thank you very much for the moment. I'm giving back to Chiara to tell us what's on our agenda now for the rest of the month. Back to you.
Before we leave you for today, let me give you a brief rundown of our next upcoming events. So tomorrow, on the 17th of August, we'll have our next Space Café Austria by the wonderful Judith Delaney, who will be talking with Christian Klosch on the subject of space junk or museum object. How important is our shared space history? And this will be done in German. Then on the 23rd of August, we have two very exciting events. So at 9 a.m. CEST, we'll kick it off with our very first Space Café Singapore by Lynette Tan of Singapore Space and Technology Limited, who will be talking with Mani Thiru of Amazon Web Services about what's new in Singapore space. Later that day, at 4 p.m. CEST, we'll have our next Space Café Israel by Mehdad Pariente, who will be talking with Dr. Anna Heller on the subject of a high school nanosatellite program that became a legend. And the title for this session is To Never Give Up on Your Dreams. Then, on the 30th of August, we'll have our next 33 minutes with Davide Petrillo on the subject of Is there enough room for youth in the European space sector? And how does the Space Generation Advisory Council see the current situation? And then on the 2nd of September, we'll have our next event by the Space Arbitration Association and Laura Yvonne Zielinski, where her panel will be trying to answer the question, can space arbitration protect space investments? Now, very exciting news. These next 2 months, our team will be on the road. If you want to say hi or meet us, just join us at the Spacecom Expo, the IBC, the World Space Business Week, the Space Generation Congress, or the IAC in Paris. Just let us know. And all our events are going to be online on Eventbrite as always. And as always, we love to hear from you. So please check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up for our daily and our bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to treat yourselves to something special, become a Space Watcher today or help us out in the supporter program. Thank you again to Kai Uwe for this inspiring and insightful talk and for being our guest. And a huge thank you to the entire team behind the scenes for doing this great job week in and week out. I hope that you all stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you for joining us today. I hope to see you tomorrow and in the next weeks. And in the meantime, visit our website, follow us on social media, and don't forget, become a Space Watcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara, for giving us this overview about the next events and the upcoming topics. So it remains to me to say thank you very much to Kai Uwe Schrogl here in the studio in Berlin. Thank you very much for your time and your answers. And hey, hope to see you next time. And as Chiara said, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. Thank you very much.